Good evening. This is Eagle News International Canadian Edition. I'm Thomas I. Likeness, reporting from our Eagle News studio in the Western Canadian province of Alberta. My city is Edmonton, and I'm here to bring you news and commentary from across the country. Canada's lagging vaccine rollout has been given a boost. Health Canada has approved the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. That gives the country 3 vaccines now in its arsenal against COVID-19. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was elated with the decision.
With Pfizer, Moderna, and now AstraZeneca, Canada will get to more than 6.5 million doses by the end of March. And there will be tens of millions more doses to come between April and June.
Trudeau says this means more people will be vaccinated sooner. Like the Pfizer and Moderna inoculants, AstraZeneca is a 2-dose vaccine. The second dose is given 1 to 3 months after the first. The vaccine has been approved for use in people over the age of 18. It's considered safe for seniors, although some countries have restricted its use to people under the age of 65. According to Health Canada, the vaccine is 62% effective. Health Canada adds there are no important safety concerns. Because it can be stored in regular refrigerators, the vaccine is ideal for use in remote areas. It was just a few months ago that public health experts were suggesting 60 to 70% of the population would have to be vaccinated to achieve herd immunity. Now, Canada's chief medical advisor to the country's health department, her name is Dr. Supriya Sharma. She says the number may have to be a lot higher. Well, first, let's find out from Dr. Sharma, what is herd immunity?
So in terms of herd immunity, I mean, in general, herd immunity is the number of people that need to have immunity to protect people that are within the herd that do not have immunity. So whether you get it through having had the disease or being vaccinated, it's that protective sort of effect.
Okay, doctor. So what will it take to achieve herd immunity from COVID-19?
Herd immunity for a virus can be anywhere from 50% to 90% of people that need to be vaccinated. And, certainly with respect to COVID-19 and the virus, the SARS-CoV-2 virus, when we were first looking at it, I think we were looking at estimates of around 60 to 70% that we would require being vaccinated. Now with the emergence of variants, and because they are more transmissible, I think a lot of people are adjusting those numbers up, towards more like 85% or even potentially 90% coverage to achieve herd immunity. But certainly that's something that is it's a moving target because the virus and its transmissibility and how contagious it is changing as we know.
I fear that's going to be a tough sell for governments. The majority of Canadians have indicated they want to get immunized, but not all of them are willing to do it as soon as the vaccine is available. And there is that element of the population, albeit a small one, there is that element that refuses to be immunized. But as I said, some people want to wait a while, perhaps to see how the shot has affected people that they know. And there's also the procrastinators. People not opposed to the vaccine, but they just never get around to making arrangements to get the shot. Or if they do get the first dose, will they remember to get the second one in a timely manner? And of course, we're hoping that there'll be enough supplies in the medicine cabinet so that everyone can be inoculated. COVID cases among Canadian healthcare workers have tripled since last summer. The Canadian Institute for Health Information says while the number of cases in healthcare workers increased, growth was slower when compared with growth in cases in non-healthcare workers. In the past 6 months, almost all provinces have seen an increase in healthcare worker cases. However, the western provinces of Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and British Columbia experienced larger percentage increases compared to the rest of Canada. Now, since the start of the pandemic, coronavirus has claimed the lives of 24 people working in healthcare. That includes 12 in the last 6 months in Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, and Alberta. The data shows that healthcare workers continue to be at risk for contracting the virus, according to the Institute. So overall, how are we doing? Well, this is the assessment of Canada's Chief Public Officer of Health, Dr. Theresa Tam.
Although COVID-19 activity has been declining nationally for several weeks, we are keeping a close eye on increased case counts over the past few days. In particular, average daily case counts have increased, ranging from 8 to 14% higher in Ontario, British Columbia, and Alberta, as compared to last week.
Okay, this is troubling, the increase in the number of cases caused by variants. That has Tam worried about a resurgence of the virus this spring.
At the same time, new variants continue to emerge, and those with an advantage, such as the ability to spread faster, can become predominant. Given a much narrower margin of error with these variants, controlling the epidemic will be much more difficult. This is why we must do our best to prevent spread now and avoid more illnesses and loss that would follow.
Those variants have public health officials in Toronto on edge. We have more on that from Eagle News correspondent Joshua Santillana.
Dr. Eileen De Villa, Toronto, Canada's Chief Medical Officer of Health, gave an update on the city's COVID-19 cases Wednesday, as well as its variant of concern cases. Take a look.
Today, I'm reporting 389 new cases of COVID-19. 30 people have been admitted to hospital, bringing the total to 351, and 63 people are in the ICU. Sadly, I'm reporting one additional death. There are 72 confirmed variant of concern cases in Toronto. 71 are the UK variant, B117, and 1 is the Brazilian variant. 710 cases have screened positive for mutations of interest and are expected to be confirmed as variants of concern.
The variant of concern cases are becoming especially alarming to some Torontonians. Toronto Public Health is working with 8 local schools that have been linked to these cases. At least one person in the following schools have tested positive for a COVID-19 variant of concern: Beverly School, Danforth Collegiate and Technical Institute, Yeshiva Yesodai HaTorah, Gulfstream Public School, the Toronto Cheddar, Helen Catholic School, Dante Alighieri Academy, and Our Lady of Lourdes Catholic School. Staff, students, and parents or guardians in the Toronto District School Board have also responded to a survey on their feelings towards health measures being followed in schools and their mental well-being. The survey shows that 20% of staff reported feeling safe at work from contracting the virus, 30% of staff were satisfied with COVID-19 related health measures placed in schools, and 7 out of 10 staff reported experiencing burnout and anxiety as a result of their jobs. In regards to students, 40% reported often feeling lonely, 50% reported feeling nervous or worried, and 60% reported feeling bored and under a lot of stress. However, 84% of students said that they learned better during in-person classes as opposed to virtual learning. In response to a question regarding the increase of variant of concern cases in schools, and if it is linked with the re-establishment of in-person learning, this is what Dr. De Villa has to say.
So at this point, David, I would say it's early to say that. We know that as people interact with each other, and that includes schools, that there is the opportunity for virus to spread and to transmit within settings. Any setting where there are people together is an opportunity for virus to spread. So certainly we expected that as schools returned to in-person learning, we were expecting that we would see cases within those settings. And in light of the fact that there are variants of concern in the community, we expect and we should expect to see variants of concern within schools. I think the other piece that I would offer is that right now, knowing what we know about the presence of variants of concern in our community, we are treating every case out of an abundance of caution. Every case that arises within the context of a school, will be assumed to be a variant of concern until proven otherwise. And again, that's being taken out of an abundance of caution so that we can create the safest environment possible within our school settings to allow our kids as much as possible that benefit of in-person learning.
In Toronto, Canada, Joshua Santaliana, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
In Alberta, as more seniors in nursing homes are vaccinated, the numbers of deaths from COVID-19 in long-term care homes has declined. Alberta's Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Dina Hinshaw, says in the last 2 months, case numbers have dropped dramatically by 92%. You recall that throughout the pandemic, people living in long-term care homes have had the highest risk of severe outcomes or death from COVID-19. In Alberta, Hinshaw notes that 2 out of every 3 deaths occurred in long-term care or designated supportive living facilities. She adds outbreaks of the infection have dropped from 74 in December to just 5 in early February. Hinshaw credits the decline to public health measures as well as immunization. Last week, Alberta expanded its vaccine rollout to include all seniors over 75, not just those living in long-term care homes. Well, you've probably seen discarded face masks on the street, and that's only a fraction of them. Tons of disposable face masks and other PPE end up in landfills. Eagle News correspondent Jeanette Doiseau tells us how Canada's forest industry has come up with a solution to all of that garbage that's been piling up.
Wearing non-medical masks, along with other health protocols, played an important role, as we know, in limiting the spread of COVID-19. The demand for non-medical masks grew and continued to do so as the COVID-19 pandemic continues. But did you know 121 billion masks contribute to plastic pollution each month globally, on average? This is according to a tweet from Environment Canada. Sadly, used and discarded disposable masks and gloves are not always disposed of properly. So much are ending up on the streets, in public parks, in rivers and oceans, as we have seen in numerous posts in different media platforms, and they are causing harm to the environment and animals. The Government of Canada recently announced the result of a $3.3 million investment to FP Innovations for a project to develop eco-friendly, biodegradable masks made from Canadian forest fiber and biodegradable plastic. FP Innovations is a private not-for-profit research and development center creating, developing advanced technologies and solutions in support of Canadian forest sector and its affiliated industries. In the news release from FP Innovations, they are ready to introduce the world's first ready-to-produce biodegradable and eco-friendly non-medical mask. The green PPE mask has been assessed by external labs as per international norms and would set the standard for non-medical masks in terms of filtration, breathability, and biodegradability. The president and CEO of FP Innovations, Stéphane Renaud, has this to say, and I quote, "The development of a biodegradable mask clearly shows that stimulating the bioeconomy can contribute to a cleaner environment in Canada. The outstanding collective scientific and technological expertise of the forest sector has been key to the success and speed of this project, and is proof that together we are capable of bringing eco-friendly, biosourced products through the pipeline from research to market within just months." End quote. This project intends to continue to protect not only the people from the persisting COVID-19, but also the environment, all the while supporting the Canadian economy by using local resources and helping get everyone back to work. In British Columbia, Jeanette Doiseau, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
A Protestant church pastor remains in jail, awaiting trial for violating public health restrictions in the Western Canadian province of Alberta. James Coates, pastor of Grace Life Church in Spruce Grove, near the Alberta capital of Edmonton, goes on trial May 3rd. He's charged with violating restrictions on attendance, physical distancing, and masking laws. His Sunday services have been packed with several hundred people since December. Coates had previously been ticketed for the offenses and ignored orders to stop. After his second arrest, Coates said he could not comply with bail conditions. He's remained in jail since. Churches in Alberta are only allowed to accommodate 15% of their fire code capacity, and attendees must physically distance and wear masks. Coates claims these restrictions are a violation of rights. A group representing doctors in Edmonton wants the Alberta government to hold off on easing any further public health restrictions. The Edmonton Zone Medical Association says instead, restaurants and bars should either be closed or have lower capacity limits. It says since restaurants were allowed to reopen a few weeks ago, case numbers have stopped decreasing. And the doctors say, unlike when the pandemic began, we're faced with more contagious variants. As well, they say restaurants and bars are not obeying current restrictions, which is putting the province at an extreme risk for a third wave. With vaccine supplies still tight, the doctors say it'll be several months before all people who are at a high risk will be immunized. The government will decide this week whether to lift more restrictions. Well, this could be bad news for Canada's economic recovery. It's unlikely the country will meet its immigration target this year. The government had planned to admit 401,000 newcomers by the end of December, but that's unlikely to happen. According to an economic report from the Royal Bank of Canada, border restrictions and the pandemic will slow the flow of immigrants coming to Canada until the end of this year. Last year, because of the pandemic, the government admitted just over half of the number of new permanent residents it targeted. Also down was the number of international students and temporary foreign workers. So in response, the federal government announced new targets for 2021 through 2023. It wants to see over 1 million new permanent residents settled over this period, and that would fully make up for the shortfall last year. But it's unlikely there'll be much of an increase until 2022. Declining immigration numbers are troubling because economic growth in Canada is dependent on immigration. The lower numbers could stall the country's economic recovery. Unfortunately, there's a darker side of the country that many immigrants see. There's been a rash of hate crimes across Canada, and that has Prime Minister Justin Trudeau concerned.
Last week, the Vancouver Police Department released data that shows that anti-Asian crimes in the city rose by more than 700% in 2020. Too many other cities have also reported significant increases of these hateful crimes, including here in Ottawa. And in Edmonton, there's been a recent series of appalling attacks targeting Black, racialized, and Muslim women. With the victims, we stand with you. There is no place for this in Canada. These acts are unacceptable, and they have to stop.
Canada's big banks have been targeted by consumers who want them to cut interest rates and suspend debt repayments for people who can't afford to pay. The demand is included in an online petition organized by a group called Democracy Watch. So far, about 80,000 people have signed it. It also calls for a cap on the salaries of CEOs of the 6 major banks in Canada. Banks have reported record profits during the pandemic. Democracy Watch says an independent, consumer-run watchdog group to oversee banking practices and help people who have been gouged or treated unfairly should be established. It also wants the bank to pay their fair share of taxes, and it calls on the government to outlaw payday loan companies. In sports, Kobe Bryant has impacted the lives of many NBA players, including Brooklyn Nets guard Kyrie Irving. The All-Star explains why Bryant should be the face of the NBA logo. EBC's Tenny Samagi has the details.
The late Kobe Bryant served as a mentor to many of today's NBA players, including Brooklyn Nets guard Kyrie Irving. Irving suggests that Bryant should be the face of the NBA's logo.
And I think as a native black man, as a native black king, I think it's part of my responsibility to continue to push our generation, our culture forward. I know that it probably was met with some people that love it. I love the idea, and some people that don't like it. But my thing is paying homage to the example that has been set by that man. He's 17 years old. We're drafting guys even younger now, guys that are coming out of different places. And he was the standard for our generation, and he will continue on. And I want that to be something in history that is changed forever, that our generation was part of that change. And, if that means that I have to lead that forward and get the conversation going, then great. But, I think he deserves it. I think his family deserves it. I think we deserve it, as seeing greatness personified as Mamba. And anyone that's coming into the league should know that that's the example that was set. And I'm only saying that just speaking about Kobe. I don't want to discredit any of our other historical players that have done amazing things for the league. I'm not discrediting anyone when I say that Kobe should be the logo, because we have so many examples of guys that did things on and off the floor that were leaps and bounds for us to be where we are now. So I'm just saying present day, I think it was 224. It was only a year after the memorial. And, it's just a refresher that this is the guy for us. He's the guy for me. He's my mentor, more than just an inspiration. I took a lot of knowledge and wisdom from that guy, and he's always around me. And Gigi's always around me. And I know that in the women's game, we want to continue to push things forward. But in our game, too, we want to set a standard and a precedent. Like, this is excellence. Kobe Bryant, logo. Yes, needs to happen. I don't care what anyone says. Black Kings built the league. It's exactly what I meant. It's exactly where I stand.
We'll have more news on the NBA throughout the season here on Eagle News. In New York, Tenny Samagi, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
We finish our program today with a story about the birthday wish of a woman in Toronto. Nina Roquette still lives in her own home at the age of 94. Celebrated her birthday the other day. She wanted no gifts, well, except for one. She wants to be vaccinated. Her daughter, Margot, says Mom is frustrated about the slow pace of Canada's vaccine rollout. Her mom hung a handwritten sign outside her home asking to be immunized.
It was the night before my mother's birthday, and I realized she's turning 94, and she has no vaccine. There is no hope of her getting the vaccine. There's no communication with any level of government, not with her doctor. Nobody seems to know anything. A lot of broken promises, and I was fed up. And I thought, I just want the world to know that she's 94 and she is worthy of having the vaccine, and she wants it.
Daughter Margot says they can't get a straight answer from doctors, public health officials, or government.
Since I've been here for 11 months, no level of government has sent a single sheet of paper in the mail addressing the vaccine, the pandemic, nothing, absolutely nothing. So I think they're failing.
She says despite the promises from the Prime Minister and others, little is being done.
What I think is happening is there's too much talking, not enough doing, and inactivity, apathy. I think we're passive and complacent, and I think there should be more banners like this. I think everybody should hang a banner outside their door or window or balcony.
At last report, Nina is still waiting for that shot. That's our program for this evening. On behalf of our Canadian news team, I wish you all good health. Stay home, stay safe, and stay tuned to Eagle News for accurate and balanced coverage of the COVID-19 pandemic and other current affairs. In Edmonton, Canada, Thomas I. Likeness, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.